All right, and we are live. Ladies, I miss seeing you in person.
I miss you guys so much.
I know. Y'all are at the office, and I am in my guest room, which looks like a dungeon.
And we have our Flyleaf shirts on. Where's yours?
We do.
Oh, look, Stephanie, ours are in like different, like they're going two different directions.
Oh, yeah.
What is that about?
I don't know. That's weird.
Huh.
Give me 30 seconds and a Sharpie, and I'll write it.
Write it on there.
I literally just changed out of it because I knew you guys are wearing it.
So, well, we have that Twink's brain that happens.
You do.
We kind of do.
We do.
Look, when you see us side by side, we really don't look that much alike. But, you know, everything is like, no, we're not that much alike. But we are.
But we are.
We love our Ali Bailey. Look at her. She's like, okay, whatever. Don't twink on me.
Whatever. I do. I miss seeing you guys. I miss the energy that the four of us have. And Kimberly's not with us. And so that's weird right now in this conversation, I mean. And so I think that that's a good segue into why we wanted to all talk, which is how we're all grieving right now, grieving locally, grieving as a community, grieving globally.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think about that?
Well, I am definitely grieving you guys and missing my job. And I know that that sounds weird, but I'm sure I'm probably not the only person who misses not being able to go in to the office and to be around people and friends and connect.
Right. I find myself missing the little things like ramen noodles in the office and us making packets of noodles for each other whenever, or the sound of my clients' footsteps in the lobby and recognizing who they are because I've worked with them and I know their footsteps, just like the little tiny things. But, you know, I miss everything about what life used to be.
Yeah.
Before it changed so drastically for everybody.
Yeah. I think a big thing too is going to be that when this is all said and done and the dust settles and everything is cool, we aren't going to be living in the same world we were living in. Like after 9/11, everything was different. And I don't know what that's going to, none of us know what that's going to be, but it's kind of scary to think about that we won't ever be the way it was before.
Right.
Right. The who's that guy's name? I always butcher his last name. Fauci, Dr. Fauci.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about? He's always on TV with Donald Trump. He's like short, has glasses.
Yeah. Anthony Fauci.
Thank you. I'm glad I said his last name right. But he was saying that like handshakes should be something that we probably should not do anymore.
Oh,
no. I know, just for like the germ aspect of it. So I saw online that there was like one woman who was suggesting how we should like greet each other. And it was like, hold your hands by your heart and like give like a little bow. And I'm like, I'm going to have to learn this. This is a new thing.
I'm going to curtsy. I'm like, hi.
Or, you know, we could go back to aggressive jazz hands, which was a big hit before.
Or I'm going to pirouette. Hi.
It's all going to be different. I mean, we're grieving at so many different levels, I think, right? I mean, we're talking about just our daily schedule and being around each other. But we're grieving, God, I mean, the inability to go and just, go to the gym, or the inability and the lack of freedom to go for a run and not be so mindful about getting out of the way if somebody else happens to be sharing the same space as you. I mean, I think that this grieving of freedom.
Yeah. And I think this ambiguous grief that we're doing is and recognizing it is really big, because we don't always recognize what it feels like when it's not directly tied to a person.
Right.
But I also think that people that are grieving people it feels very different. It's just they're not the same thing, but it's still a grief process. Yeah. But I feel for the people who are grieving people but can't really grieve them yet, or they can't grieve them in the traditional way that we have. And it's got to be exponentially hard for that.
Absolutely. The people with cumulative grief, like I've lost my income, the children have lost school, I've lost, my gym and my friendships, and now a loved one is sick, and it's thing after thing after thing. Like,
all of those layers.
All the layers. Yeah.
But I think it's one of the things that's important, though, is like how we always talk about trauma is relative. Mm-hmm. And we know what I might not think is a big deal to somebody else, and, that kind of thing. I think grief is relative too. And that for some people, there's judgment on somebody who And some of it might be generational, I don't know, but there's judgment on somebody who says that they're grieving or they're devastated over the loss of something that's seemingly unimportant for somebody else, that says just get over it. And I think we need to be mindful and careful about judging other people for what their experience is, because we're all doing this in a crazy way.
Absolutely. It's all relative, right?
Yeah.
That reminds me of like that Brene Brown video that we love of sympathy versus empathy, and rarely does an empathetic response begin with "at least."
Right.
Like poor seniors, like, you know, well, I'm not getting a prom anymore. Well, at least you're graduating, or at least you're not sick, or at least all these other things. But for that population, and maybe it just speaks to me because, I mean, y'all know where I'm from and how old I was when my area was wrecked by a hurricane. That they're getting at least to death, like that population, that giant group of kids, like that sucks for all of them.
Right. Yeah. And so what I'm hearing you guys say, and I tend to agree, is that at some level, each and every person on this planet is grieving.
Yeah, I think so. And I would also expand it and argue that on some level, every single person, no matter how well they think that they're doing, is experiencing trauma on some level.
Absolutely.
Because it isn't, you know, I shared this with you guys earlier. One of the things that I'm growing to understand about trauma through this, thank goodness I'm learning, right? But growing to understand through this is that trauma has all these different layers, and it isn't just what happened to me or what happened to someone I love, but, you know, the definition of trauma fits on a national level, on a, you know, global level, because it's all about safety and protection. And if you're not feeling safe or protected, then you can experience trauma. And so it's for me, the definition of trauma is broadening even more.
Right. And I have to say too, oh, go ahead, Ali.
No, go, Steph, you're good.
No, go ahead.
I was just thinking, as Kim was saying that, like the memory of me walking to the supermarket looking to find hand sanitizer and not being able to find it, and that gut sink of, oh my gosh, this is what I've been told I need to stay healthy, and now I don't have it. That little moment of panic, you know, I think so many other people resonate with that, with toilet paper and groceries and just all of the things that are all of a sudden not available.
That scarcity mindset.
Safety issue.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you have people who are jerks that are just hoarding stuff so they can make money off of it. But I think what happens for the most part is that we are so afraid and fearful of not having what we need to survive. And for whatever reason, the world's decided that toilet paper is what we need to survive. It's very symbolic of that panic of just grabbing onto what you can hold on to so that you can find safety and be grounded.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking that out of all of this, though, I have such a profound sense of gratitude at the same time, that for the things that I used to take for granted, like minutely, I think.
Minutely.
So if minutely.
Good word. Write it down.
That's a new word.
You are welcome. This is me. But I do just like the toilet paper, like the freedom to go into a store without having to be counted. And it's all so different. So while I'm grieving and while we're going through trauma, I've also had this third pillar of a profound sense of gratitude.
Yeah. And I have found that the adaptations that we've made around some of the stuff that's going on for us aren't necessarily going to be bad, but I do fear, I have this, like, I don't know, it's a
you want to put your brains in your hand?
I can put them here. Here they are. I can have them on my hand. So I have this dueling, I guess, argument, the devil and the, you have yours too, the devil and the angel. And what I keep thinking to myself is how much I respect and I love human connection. And it's so much part of what I do and how I do what we do here, and how much I believe in the need to be in each other's space to regulate and to feel each other and to really get to know each other. And right. I think there's no replacement for that. And what I fear is that there's this almost comfort with not having to have that anymore. Like, people are going to be too comfortable not being around each other and too okay with tele everything, when I don't think that there's a replacement for human contact.
Totally agree 100%.
Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've known friends who moved to like a big city like New York, who didn't know anybody there, who would intentionally ride the subways and like bump into somebody for the excuse to say, oh, I'm sorry, and to have that moment of human to human connection, even in such a crowded place, they recognize that absence of connection.
Yeah.
I don't, I think people are going to try to maybe sugarcoat this, like, well, at least they're going to at least I can still work, or at least I can, do things online now, but it's not the same.
Mm-mm.
No, it isn't. And I think, I honestly think that, if we stay this way, I fear that some people's jobs won't come back.
Right.
Because we'll just tele them right on out the window. Like my panic and all of my stuff tends to go to more of the disconnection that's going to stay and last. And that's where I get kind of like anxious about it. I'm not so anxious that I'm going to get sick and die. That's not my personal fear. But mine is that we will be moving out of this into a place where we don't need to connect with people, or we don't feel like we need to connect with people. And it's been an ongoing fear. The more we do technology, you guys, we've talked about this.
I was just going to say, I mean, we have been watching technology be a disconnector for so long now. And now it's kind of this, it's a blessing and a devil, right? Because it's created such disconnection worldwide, but that it's also right now keeping us connected right now. And so, I don't know. Kim, I'm right there with you. Yeah, exactly. I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you, though, about the fear of the long-lasting impact and not getting back to what we had prior to all of this. So,
yeah, because we talk about, and with our sex addiction work, like, people having sex dolls and having all of these things instead of a human. And, if you start taking human connection out and replacing it with something else, then what do we have left?
Right.
See, that's where I get into that dark.
Right. I think it's artificial. Eventually people are going to hopefully come back around and go back to those attachment things. Like we didn't attach as a species to the wire monkey. We needed the nurturance. So a robot's never going to be able to nurture, at least the ones that are existing right now can't.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe it's going to take, I don't know that it's going to go back to what it was, because I don't know that it can. Like this global experience is now woven into everybody's narratives and in everybody's fabrics. This is going to be one of those punctuating life events where we remember before and after.
Yeah.
It's going to be figuring out how to move forward in a new way.
Yeah. And I think that we have to have a little bit of realistic expectations of when this does go back to normal, so to speak, because I think that, I don't know for how long, but I would assume that there's going to be a slow rollout into how things were before, hopefully, right? I think that people are still going to be really concerned about distance and really concerned about touch and space, occupying, shared space. And so we have to be prepared for that also. And so then that would lead into my question, would that be considered anticipatory grief then?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And for me, it's anticipatory almost, I'm certainly not dysregulated and acting crazy, but I have this, my fear also comes into when we come out of this, and trauma is exactly what you said. That's the definition of trauma, right, Ali? Like that punctuating point where you existed before and you existed after.
Right.
And as a world, even when we come out of this, 3 months down the line, if I get too close to somebody, are they going to scream at me?
Right.
Like, because whatever I believe my new social distance is, like, I hope that I don't stay 6 feet from everybody in the whole world from here on out, but my new personal space is going to be different than it used to be. And I think everybody's is, and it's going to be really hard. And people are going to get angry and panicked if they feel invaded on. And then some people are going to feel like, but I need that personal space.
Right.
So I really have a concern about those kinds of conflicts.
I agree.
Boundary negotiations, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that with people you don't know.
Right.
It's going to be different. Yeah.
Well, hopefully that different doesn't last forever. And that's what I keep trying to remind myself and to remind anybody that we're working with, is that it's a for now, not forever.
Yeah.
Right.
And I do have faith that we'll settle into a new normal. But I have some grieving around the fact that somebody even said we shouldn't shake hands anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
That just bothered me.
Are we still able to kiss?
Who were we kissing before?
I don't know. We have to ask.
Kiss whoever you want, Stephanie.
Like kiss our family members. Yeah, you know what I mean? Kiss on the cheek or whatever.
Right. Yeah, or people greet that way.
Greetings, yeah.
Right. And then now we're talking about cross culture too, because there are many cultures, like in Europe especially, where the formal greeting or the informal greeting is to do the double cheek kiss thing. You don't shake hands, you embrace.
Right.
So those going to be beautiful aspects that are, halted or changed completely.
Or the bro hug. What's that going to look like now?
Right.
I don't know.
Like, can you still fist bump or?
Do you like the elbow touch, jazz hand?
Mm-hmm.
Headbutt, chest bump. I don't know. Yeah, it's just going to be, I don't know.
I think the willingness to find out though, and the willingness to maybe know that it might look different before it looks familiar is adaptive.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's, and that's resilient.
I think too, we need to pay attention to the people in our lives and be mindful of the grieving that they're experiencing, because what we're talking about right now might not be anybody else's experience. And theirs might be something that we might think is minimal, but our kids aren't going to school right now.
Right.
Our kids are not, I don't necessarily know about like all the celebrations that are going to be going on for whatever grade you're in, that kind of thing. But I do know that there are rites of passage that kids aren't going to have. And one of them is the last day of school before summer.
Right.
I know it sounds silly, but kids look forward to that.
Well, signing of yearbooks and pictures and pool parties. I mean, absolutely. Yeah. And I think about the parents at home, right, who are used to having that little bit of break when a child does go to school and they're able to go about their own business for their own personal stuff or planning for the family with meals and going to the grocery store, and how all of that has been suspended and they have gone from autonomy into full on, parenting 24/7 and teaching, and the grief that it might put on the coupleship that the coupleship is experiencing, not just on an individual, but as the couple and even family, because now, if we're not working, we're not going to be able to go on family holiday.
Right.
Or worse, we're not going to pay our mortgage. We're not going to be able to buy groceries, or your kid needs braces and that's not on the table anymore,
Right.
Such a domino effect of just how this has negatively impacted so many different families and so many different systems, I don't think there's anybody that's untouched by this in some way.
Right.
And I also think about the family systems that aren't really healthy and that people are trapped with each other, and there's all kinds of different unhealthy behaviors that go on there. Anything from abuse to neglect to just not getting
addiction.
along. Addiction, domestic, all of those things, but they're being, kind of stuck together, and there is a great big deal of sense of helplessness in that, and for some people work and school were their refuge.
Right.
And they don't have those right now. That used to be their safety, and it isn't.
I agree.
Right.
So many different levels, so much grieving. And I'm just glad that we're able to talk about it and put a label on it, right? And normalize it for everybody, because everybody, I do believe, as the three of us agree, we're all grieving and we're all in trauma.
We're all in trauma.
We are. I think all of us are. I think that one of the things that we know about trauma is how we navigate through the event determines how we come out of the event.
Right.
And so I think it's real important for us to start thinking about our narrative now, and what is it that we want to say about ourselves later, and how do we want ourselves to look the healthiest coming out of this, and to start moving towards that now by doing these positive adaptive measures that we're doing.
I agree.
So what are those positive adaptive measures? Like, what are you guys doing? Because we're people too, we're clinicians, yes, but we're humans.
Yeah. So
I just did that wellness video that we're going to post, hopefully, and I talked about being outdoors, right? Being outside brings such a catharsis into our system to connect with our soul.
Yeah.
And then exercise. I mean, trying to find, I almost have developed a little COVID-19 bucket list for myself of things that I want to get done before we go back to normal. So different ways of challenging myself.
Yeah. And for me, it's weird. It's like getting back to when we were kids, where kids weren't running from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing like they are now. And it's spending time with the family in a healthy, positive way. And even because of activities and stuff, having family dinner has been hard. And so I've been cooking more and trying to do things that way. Professionally, doing telehealth is one that I think is going to last. I don't think it'll be the end all be all, but we'll definitely be incorporating it we won't be ditching it when we go back. And so I think creating new rituals is something that we can do that will help us cope through this. And just determining where we want to find our safety. Do we want to find our safety within and with our families and with our friends, and where do we want to look for our safety and where do we want to look for our autonomy?
Right.
Ali, what about you?
I've been practicing a lot of rigorous honesty with self. Because there have been days in this where if I'm not seeing clients, I am laid out on the couch playing some stupid iPhone game and just mind numbing and having this internal angel and devil conversation of, is this really self-care or is this just distraction? Is this numbing? Is this avoiding? What is this? And then making a different choice when I recognize that I thought this was healthy for me, but it's not.
Yeah.
And also showing myself a lot of grace in that John Breyer kind of way, where this is a distress reducing behavior. And if all I have right now is this iPhone, I'm glad I have the iPhone.
Yeah.
But it's an invitation to look for other things. So my husband and I have been walking the neighborhood a good bit and waving at new people and new animals that we're meeting. Angry dogs, basically, but they're okay.
Yeah, see, that kind of stuff that helps feed my gratitude and my, and just seeing everybody, seeing families together, seeing people moving their bodies, seeing people just smiling and making eye contact. It was so nice.
Yeah, more eye contact because we haven't had any other contact.
Yeah, more eye contact because everybody's wanting to make sure that we're 6 feet apart from each other.
And everybody's wearing
eye contact, but it's eye contact.
And everybody's wearing masks, so all you can do is just Tyra Banks smiles at everybody, right?
Yeah. Yes.
It does feel like it.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, we're going to be different. But I think that we're going to be
going to be resilient.
Yeah. Well, what we do today builds our resilience for tomorrow, right?
Right.
Agreed.
And being able to move into that adaptive space. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think sometimes just reminding myself that this is for today, not forever.
Right.
Is helpful.
For now, not
and
forever.
Also, not watching the news 24/7 is a smart move.
Mm-hmm. Limiting what we're putting in our brain.
Yeah, and because there's a lot of garbage, even social media garbage. And you have your phone, I have my little social media lately. I've been just a maniac on there, but mostly because I just want to smile. It's my escape. I just want to just laugh and smile and just not think about the heavy things in the world. And so sometimes that's how I escape. But recognizing, like what you said, that this is an escape. It's not the way it needs to be. And like our kids on computers, there's so much technology going on right now that at some point we need to go back to regulating the amount of time they're on their computers and pulling them back.
Right. And helping them realize that there are other ways to regulate besides their computer, that, numbing and avoiding aren't necessarily the best coping.
Mm-mm.
No, but they are coping.
They are coping. And I'm grateful that they had that.
Yeah.
Because, like what you say, Kim, that this social distancing thing is really a misnomer. It should be called physical distancing, and we can use technology to stay connected.
Yeah.
But when I'm mind numbing for hours on, I don't even know what the game is called. I don't know. It's like Candy Crush, but it's not Candy Crush. Whatever. It's not even that important. I can't even remember the name of it. That's not connecting.
No.
I've been numbing on Facebook Marketplace, looking at things just looking, just looking. Just looking at things that one day I would want, but it's a way of numbing out.
Yeah, I think to a degree we all have to at some point. Right. But we have to come, and I always say, numbing is not bad. Numbing is a coping skill. Who cares if you numb? But you got to come back. If you numb and you stay numb, then we have a big problem. But taking a break from reality that's what coping is.
Right.
So
well, it's the same thing as, having a little bit of isolate or a little bit of solitude is a good thing, right? That's an opportunity to reflect and recharge. It's when you move into isolation that's the problem. So a little bit of numbing, not such a bad thing, but when it becomes our end all be all of existing, then
we have a problem with that.
And it sucks when the nomenclature right now is social isolation, when isolation in and of itself is not a healthy thing. Well, it's not healthy. Like we need to have like a healthy name for this. And it might be like all glittery and like flowery and a little hippie sounding, but like, the words now are just not very nice.
Yeah.
No, they're not. They're just the social distancing just bothers me just in and of itself, because if anything, we should be social closesting and physical distancing. We should be getting closer to our people. And it's funny because I have like Zoom meetings with my friends and with my family. Zoom was here before this thing happened, and I never Zoom anybody. I didn't have time, and nor did I have the inclination. Right. All of a sudden I do, so, which brings me joy, and I hope we don't stop it. So there are some wonderful things coming from it.
Sure.
But it's sometimes you got to, get slapped around a little bit to realize that you need to go back to basics and connect with people again.
Absolutely. Right. I think that this has been the one big, those big reset buttons. This has been a reset button that the universe has provided us, I think, for right now.
Yeah, I agree.
Ready or not, here it came.
Yeah. It's like, I keep hearing this pandemic couldn't have come at a worse time. I'm like, yeah, I didn't know when there was a good time for a pandemic, but in my world, it came at a really bad time. So I agree with that sentiment.
I think the people in the bubonic plague said that too.
Spanish flu.
This pandemic just hit me at the wrong time. I mean, I agree with it, but it is funny how we're like, couldn't this happen at a different? No, it just happens. The world.
Oh yeah, because life is happening too. So like outside of all of the stuff that the pandemic brought, like there were still struggles and there were still bright spots and there was still life happening, and now life is still happening, but with a different color and flavor.
Right.
It's funny that you say that, because I had that thought the other day, or I don't remember if I had the thought or the conversation. That happens sometimes, but that because the world stops, it doesn't. It's almost like everybody's stubborn and standing still for a minute, but the world is still revolving and it's still going, and we can't live in that spot. We have to at some point give a little bit to, whether it's to creating space for each other or moving back in towards each other. At some point, I hear people digging their feet in around, this is where I feel and this is where I stand and this is what I'm going to do. And if nobody moves at all, we're just going to be stuck. The world's still going to happen. So we can be stuck with the world going on, or what?
And when we're stuck, right, and we're so ingrained, we begin to turn away from each other and move further away. Not just turn away, but move further away. And that's the last thing that we need.
And that's happening right now. I forget what state. Maybe it was Michigan, where there are protesters blocking some exit, and healthcare workers couldn't get to the hospital because they want the state open again.
Yeah. Do you remember Dr. Seuss's story, The Zacks?
The who?
The Zacks.
I remember.
No. In the Prairie of Cracks, the north-going Zacks and the south-going Zacks. And one always goes north and one always goes south. And they never move, not an inch, and they bump into each other. Of course, it's Dr. Seuss, and he's awesome. And they both look at each other and go, I'm not moving. The other one goes, well, I don't move either. So they stand there in the middle of this prairie for so long that a whole city gets built around them. And they're just standing there. And you see in the book, there's all these highways and all these things, and it's two little guys looking at each other going, nope, not moving. And that's kind of how I envision this. If we don't start giving a little bit here and there around the things, you don't even have to move a lot, but just give a little here and there and give grace to each other, the world's going to happen. We have a choice of either moving with the world or just not moving at all.
Right.
And if we can make those choices on how to zig and zag with compassion, and like, where can I enact a little bit of change that might be helpful to somebody?
Right.
And empathy, then it doesn't feel like you're giving up anything. It feels like it's a what did Dr. Grand call it? Like a karma economy thing,
right?
Yeah. As much as I'm getting, and it's a great thing.
You guys are hitting all my points on that wellness video I did.
Well, we're just connected with the brain.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, we got to wrap this up though.
Okay.
This
I love you, ladies.
I love you too, girls. Flyleaf girls.
I miss you guys.
I miss you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Be kind to yourselves.